Welcome to New Release Review, part of the Movie Friends podcast. My name is Seth. Joining me today is Liam, aka Rolo Tony, and we're going to give our thoughts fresh from the theater on Wes Anderson's 2023 film, Asteroid City. We will be discussing some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film yet, just please be aware. So, Liam, Rolo Tony, how are you, and what did you think of this movie?
I'm doing well, Seth. How are you? Doing well? Yeah. When it comes to the movie, I'll bust into the thoughts here. So, Asteroid City, there's a scene that happens like halfway through the film, and it's with Maya Hawke's young school teacher character, June. She's trying to explain to her students that the solar system works a particular way, but the students, they don't listen to her. They don't care what she has to say because they saw an alien the night before. And Hawke is used to commanding these children simply based on age and experience, but in this moment, her understanding of the world is now that of a child as well. An alien with all of its stop motion glory has landed, and with it, a new approach to the solar system and perhaps life itself is required, right? And humans, all of us, we're obsessed with trying to make sense of what's going on. Time and time again, Wes makes the point that maybe we aren't always meant to know what's going on, and it's more important to just live in the moment. It's only through living where true insights and enlightenment can be made. Fiction in art makes fiction and art makes things easier to kind of digest. This is all echoed throughout the several narratives inside of narratives, all telling the same story. Adults are steadfast in their beliefs and are completely invalidated in one fell swoop. Children are able to view the world without reason, leading to actions that have the best possible outcomes. Artistic innovation is equally weighted to scientific discovery. Let's consider the alien that appears in the middle of the film, right? He's alone, he looks terrified, and he comes down and he grabs that meteor and he runs out of there, right? And the town used that meteor as the tourist destination, right? And now it's lost without it. Their landmark is gone. And the alien comes back and he drops the asteroid back off, but this time it's different. There's markings left on it. And Leave says it's for like inventory reasons, right? It could be that. It could be, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly, the object is now changed forever. Thanks to this chance inexplicable connection, these characters and humanity itself may never be the same. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was about how a dad couldn't connect with their child and found a better world for themselves with extraterrestrials. But here, Wes is saying that we are all we got, you know? So to be kind, push each other with greatness and respect, that's all that matters to him, right? The line I can't stop thinking about is if you can't wake up, you won't fall asleep, right? You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. That's it. When I heard those words, wake up, right? I couldn't I obviously thought about Spike Lee's School Days, you know, and it's an incredible use in that film. Fishburne's making a plea to his classmates to wake up, to avoid the mistakes of the past and to create a better future. And I think that Wes is saying that in order to wake up and to gain social or intellectual consciousness, one must first fall asleep. They have to dream. They have to let their mind wander and stop asking questions. You got to take the ride.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think we can come to a place in life where we're finding ourselves disappointed with where we are. How did I let this happen? Nah, 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 nah. And it's a bit of a soothing balm to those of us who might question how we allowed ourselves to come to this place. Hey, it's okay. Until you fall asleep, you can't wake up. You have been in this in-between space, but now you don't need to regret falling asleep. You're able to wake up. It was, continue.
I was going to say that's paralleled really nicely with that kind of reality break we get in the last act, right? When Schwartzman's character, he's in the middle of the scene and he can't make sense of it, right? And he goes out and he has that wonderful conversation with Robbie, right? Where essentially it's just to keep going, right? He's so caught up in the intentionality of it, you know, am I doing the right thing for my children? Am I doing the right thing for like the world? Is this thing that I'm getting with Scarlett Johansson, is that okay? You know, all of those things in the text And then also as the actor, he's like trying to figure out if this is the right role for him. He seems like he's kind of a loose cannon type, but he's committed to the role. And it's through that conversation with Robbie where she tells him to keep going, and it's layered throughout the film. You see that constantly. It's an interesting phenomenon.
How did you feel about the structure of this
Yeah.
movie? How did you
Oh
feel about the
man.
structure of the movie?
I think it was
I'm
Paul
not asking you to
Schrader.
100% explain it.
Oh
Just
no, I
like,
won't.
how did
Yeah.
you feel? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Schrader described it as like keeping the audience at arm's length on purpose to kind of like reach
Hmm.
something deeper, and I agree with that entirely. Right? Um, there's those act breaks that come, right, and they tell you how many scenes are coming. And for me, as I'm
Yeah.
watching the film, I can't not like count in my head and like go, "Oh yeah, no,
Hmm.
that was 3 scenes," right? And there, when you're aware of time in that way, right? There is a good thing that can happen with that, and there's a bad thing that can happen with that. The bad version of that's you're watching a bad movie and you're just checking your watch, right? And you're waiting for it to be over. And this one, you're like always aware that there is a beginning and there's an ending, and things are fictional. And for me, as I was watching it, I was like it was that kind of artifice that was able, it was through that artifice that I was then able to kind of access my own personal connection to these characters. I was more willing to see them as like facades of real world people. But despite that, they are their own characters. They have their own things to say. And when you consider who they're supposed to be, like maybe Elia Kazan is definitely someone there. Rod Serling is someone who's definitely there. When you think about what those characters and what those people represented, and then you see what Wes Anderson is having them say, I think that's a wonderful thing. He's in conversation with history. He's in conversation with art, history, as well as like scientific discovery. And I love it when filmmakers get anthropological. That's the way I describe it.
I had a somewhat opposite reaction to the chapters and scene breakdown. I love it when a film does chapter one, chapter two, and it tells us, okay, the story is continuing, but we're stopping for a moment to let you know that there is a pause. There's going to be a difference between these two chapters. We just covered Hunt for the Wilder People, and each chapter also comes with a chapter title, and it tells you what's going to happen. I really enjoy that growing up reading. A book is not just one extremely long, unbroken thing like a film is. So I think that's great. What happened with me was we would come to a new break and it would lay out the number of scenes, and I would go, oh, that's right, I forgot. Because I just got so swept up in the story. The last segment was 3 scenes, and I totally didn't, I wasn't counting because I was so involved in the story. I think a lot of filmmakers come to a point in their career where they want to make a movie about making movies. And you only have to look at what movies win awards consistently to see that artists are concerned with what artists are concerned with.
Mhm.
It's no surprise that a film that's about someone on the outside who faced insurmountable odds for their art eventually was rewarded, that is awarded awards by artists.
It's true. They
um,
know their audience.
and so it's like Wes is doing a, hey, here's the behind the curtain scene of making a production, but he doesn't go as far as making it about making a film. It's about making
Mhm.
a play. And I liked that. I like that he's edging close to that territory of navel gazing, but it's still held at a distance because it's about something that he doesn't do, which is, making plays. I really like that. I like the little break where um, Bryan Cranston appears in color when he's not supposed to. He quickly says, "Oh, am I not? Am I supposed to be here?" And then just kind of goes, and then the play just continues. I like that Wes has fun, and from what we've heard from all the people who are literally getting paid the minimum amount that their union will let them get paid, his productions are fun. They're enjoyable to be around. He has all of these actors come back. You know, we look at an actor, director, team, you know, Molly Ringwald and John Hughes, Tom Cruise and McQuarrie, all these people were like, wow, they must have a great relationship. Well, Wes has that with like 30 people. And that can't just be because they're getting paid a lot or it's great for their image or it's good publicity. They must really enjoy doing these things. And for me, I see all the criticism for his films. One, there's a massive lack of representation for people of color, 100%. Two, he is doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on his style, refusing to deviate from it. Three, are his movies relevant to anything that's happening today, or is it just a little light show to distract us from the realities of our horror? All of these criticisms, I understand. I see them too. But when I sat down in the theater to watch Asteroid City, about 15 minutes in, I said to myself, very happily, oh, none of this matters. Nothing really matters. This is fun. It's entertaining. It's interesting to look at. And I felt joyous at the movie theater. Now, everything that you just said, 100% true. There's a lot that he's saying in here about what a performer gives of their personal life to their craft. He's saying a lot about grief. He's saying a lot about, I mean, I definitely saw a parallel between lockdown and the quarantine that we just went through and the quarantine that the people of Asteroid City have to go through. And then when it's lifted, it's like, okay, actually, it's not lifted anymore. I saw that. I don't think that he was necessarily trying to make a point, but there is a lot going on underneath the surface of this film. So I'm not trying to detract from that, but I wish that his detractors could kind of just let all that stuff go, because if you can, it's a wonderful experience. I laughed so much. There is a roadrunner in this movie that goes meep meep multiple times. It doesn't just happen once and you're like, what was that? It keeps happening and you're like, he's doing the meep meep thing. The UFO that comes in and the alien, it kind of like rides down this little pole. It gets 4 inches from the ground and then a tiny little, tripod spirals out and touches the ground as if he couldn't step down that extra. It's very whimsical. I think Wes does whimsy with, darkness and depression hand in hand. So good. I was going to say better than anybody, but who cares? I'm not interested in comparing him to other people. He is so singular. And I just wish more people could embrace that. Like, just embrace fun and embrace not everything having to mean something. I feel like so many movies nowadays are up against this almost insurmountable wall where every movie has to be everything. There was a joke going around on Twitter about every animated movie, including a panic attack scene.
Yes.
There's like the Paw Patrol movie and Puss in Boots, and I think there was like one or two more. Every movie has to be everything. Well, it shouldn't have been as funny, or it should have been funnier, or instead of looking at a movie as the singular thing that it is. And the thing about Wes's movies is they are so singular that I can't compare Asteroid City to Mission Impossible. I can't compare Asteroid City to No Hard Feelings. You can just take it as it is. So
yeah. I think the only film you really can accurately compare it to is not Asteroid City. That's what we're talking about. French Dispatch. Dispatch is like the framework for it, right? It's like that's a film about how do we tell all of these different insular stories in an anthology fashion, and rather than it actually like making up into one interconnected narrative, all of these narratives, they like tell you about the person who created the New Yorker, right? Or like tell you
Right.
about the worldview of somebody who would read the New Yorker, right? And with with Asteroid City, like every time Wes Anderson makes a movie, there are some detractors, right? But they've been like really loud and annoying this time, I've found. And I think the reason they've been outspoken is because of those like AI generated like Wes Anderson things, right?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
listening to the Big Pictures review of Asteroid City the night, like last night after I'd watched the movie, and Adam Naiman, the critic, he said something that stuck with me, which is that there's this phenomena where people who don't like understand artistic intention or don't understand style, Wes Anderson, he's a very easy target because he's very easily recognizable as style to anybody,
Right.
right? You
Right.
don't have to like with a you could show somebody a Sidney Lumet film, and for like the first 5 minutes,
Yes.
they would not immediately say this is one of the greatest directors of all time because it's not like in your face about those shot choices. Now, that's not to say that Lumet is
Sure.
worse than Wes Anderson, of course, right? They're just two different filmmakers.
No.
When it
Right.
comes to this time, though, right? Like people, they like you said, they ask for those things. They want it to be funny, they want it to be dramatic, they want it to have all of those things. But when they don't get enough of all of them, or if they don't see the thing that they liked from other Wes Anderson films in the newest one, they just check out, right? I wrote a
Right.
tweet about this movie where I was like, imagine a film better than The French Dispatch made by Wes Anderson. And the comments are hilarious because they're like, what do you mean? Of course there's a better movie than The French Dispatch. It's called insert their favorite Wes Anderson movie, right? Everybody has
Sure.
a different
Sure.
answer, right? So for this one in particular, right, people, they're going to try to like find ways to intellectualize it, to try to like wrap their head around it, right? And I was trying to find like the silliest way of describing Asteroid City if you want to make it contemporaneous, right? This is a multiverse movie. This is
Sure.
several different narratives that exist within different timelines, both fictional and real, right? But all of the things they matter, right? I hate myself for saying that, by the way. I don't like I it's
Sure.
not like a
That's fine.
but also it's true. When it comes to the quarantine element, right? The COVID
Hmm.
parallels, right? Because I think that's there, but I think smartly, it's not really the forefront of the story. It's more so the plot convention that causes everything to happen. And I had a funny thought where I was like, I think that Wes Anderson kind of sympathized with like the anti-lockdown people because nobody is respecting this quarantine. Everybody is hanging out with each other. They're supposed to be on house like in their houses, but I don't think that there's ever been a point in the movie where I was like, yeah, they're fully in a quarantine right now.
Yeah, and I think that there's a difference between saying, I'm going to insert this to say something and saying, we're going to put this situation and how would these characters react? And then letting the characters that we've already established react in the way that they would react. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think that he's trying to make a statement one way or the other, but it's hard. It's hard to tackle anything that is so raw and real to everyone in any kind of comedic way. Like, well, you can't joke about that. But until we can joke about things, we can't really see it from every perspective. You know what I mean? When you're made fun of, when someone makes fun of you, you don't like the way that that person is framing you, right? And so
Mhm.
we know that jokes help us to frame things in different ways. Until we can joke about something, we can't know what it really is. We're missing a big part of the perspective of it. So yeah, I didn't feel in any way like oh wow, Wes Anderson's getting political here. I
Ah.
just thought that's a funny little thing, and
Mm.
the different people react differently, and the whole idea of there's such fantastical elements to this that I'm so glad he's not afraid to get into. We could say that this is Wes Anderson doing science fiction, right? And so this is how Wes Anderson does science fiction, apparently. You just randomly have a guy with a laser gun that disintegrates. So they're playing, skeet and trap with it. There's an alien and no one is screaming. It's a very particular strange science fiction story, but as someone who loves science fiction, I like to see different takes on it. I was just talking with someone last night about, the parameters of film and why it's important to see things that go outside the norm, because it shows you how far you can take something or where you can take something in a direction that you never would have thought. I would never have written an alien arrival scene in that way, and I don't know that anyone else would either. So I'm glad that for the genre of sci-fi, this film exists.
It it's like insular in how it handles that alien stuff. Like the alien design itself feels like an inversion of like the classical gray alien, right? Like usually they're like really small, big eyes, big head, right? And then the inverse is true with this one. It's really long, very small head, very small eyes. When it comes to the classification of the film, like you thought of it as like a science fiction movie, and I think rightfully so. I'd say it certainly is. But I thought of this like when I was trying to conceptualize it, like this is a New Mexico movie. This is a movie about New Mexico in the 50s. And I think that's a really important thing to discuss because, it's timely. We got Oppenheimer coming out in a couple weeks, right?
Sure.
We got a whistleblower talking about aliens. It's right. It's right now, right? Asteroid City, whether or not it planned for it, whatever, right? But I think that when you look at all of the otling films, like the Darjeeling Limited when he goes to India or Grand Budapest Hotel, these are all movies that are totally entrenched in the like cultures that are present there, right? And with the New Mexico culture at the 50s, it's all about, like the government trying to build things like the atomic bomb tests that are going on throughout this whole film. There's that looming death threat, but humans kind of just live with it. It's odd. They treat the nuclear explosion the same way as that constant police chase we see, the Roadrunner gag, really, right? Because that's like a constant threat to everybody, but it never hurts them. And you brought something up about filmmakers who constantly make movies about making movies, right? And it's interesting too, because no matter what movie they make that is kind of within this distinction, they're always set in the past. They're never set in the present day, right? And I think it only makes sense that Wes Anderson did it this way because, if you analyze the history of New Mexico, which ironically I'm aware of because I've got a planned trip there for August. So I've been looking into this personally. And, when you look into the history of like Alamos and you've got Roswell and how it all adds up together into one identity, it feels like there's a lot of like wayward souls who are trying to like tell this story, but there's not a lot of people there to listen. And that's reflected through like the small population in Asteroid City itself. I have to say, like, there's a massive ensemble here. I don't think that anyone drops the ball. I think that everyone in this film is like delivering like career highlight performances.
I have one.
Okay, go for it. I want to hear. What's up?
I don't, anybody who knows me knows I don't like to dwell on the negative. I had one big glaring sore thumb in this film, and I just thought, why did they use him? What did he bring to this? I was very perplexed. This is someone that I really enjoy. Liev Schreiber in this movie, to me, almost did nothing. He was almost non-existent.
Oh, wow. Oh, no.
Rolo Tony right now is holding on to his hat because what I just said is going to send it into the atmosphere.
Don't reveal my hairline.
Wasn't. Yeah. I thought anyone could have done that. I thought anyone could have done what he did, and he didn't really add anything to me other than I kept saying, why is Liev Schreiber in this? I did really enjoy everyone else. In particular, I really loved what Steve Carell was doing. His whole bit with everything coming out of a vending machine. And this guy who's behind the scenes saying yes to everything, helping everybody, selling tiny little plots of land for $10 and change. I loved that because at no point you can see a version of this character that's like money grubby, you know what I mean? And like trying to get one over on people. And, he's the guy who's selling everything. But it just comes across from Steve Carell as like so pure and innocent. And like, yeah, well, of course you can buy real estate through a vending machine. Of course you can buy a mixed cocktail through a vending machine. What's the problem? And then the other person that he made me cry in French Dispatch just from talking. And in this one, my head was spinning with delight whenever he was talking. Jeffrey Wright, who I think is a phenomenal actor. I really, really loved him in season 1 of Westworld. I think he steals that show. He's so good. Obviously, he's done a lot of things throughout his career, Biscuit, but French Dispatch and here, it's like a whole new person. It's almost a performance that can't translate to another movie because it's so rapid fire. But what a display of talent, for me, for Jeffrey Wright in these two films. And what a great parallel between the two characters when you look at the character that he's playing in French Dispatch, what he's talking about, to who he's playing here. They're nothing alike. And it's just delightful that he has this opportunity to crush it 2 times in a row.
There's whenever an actor goes off on a monologue, right, and they're just like eating it up and they're just going fast, I always think of Waiting for Godot, Lucky, like the guy who just kind of, are you familiar? Yeah. Like whenever they do that, like my mind always go there and I'm like, yeah, this is their Lucky scene, right? This movie is loaded with Lucky scenes. You've got like actors just coming in, dropping these massive monologues left, right, and center. Specifically, right. I love the way that he's in contact with the president, and every communication he has with the president is like, he's so mad right now. I can't believe you guys are doing this. Please don't talk about it, right? He has that line where he's like, all right, we're going to sign this, so we're going to make it a secret, and we can't reveal it until 100 years from now. And, obviously Wes isn't like a super politically minded guy, but that's a funny thing to say about the secrets, and the idea that
absolutely,
and it's again the children.
It's fun, like right.
They like it's because
it's
of
fun
their curiosity.
To play on the stereotype, right. The stereotype of the general in the science fiction film, who's like pounding the tables and here you get this very strange version of.
I have to say, I love Schwartzman. This is like probably the best Wes Anderson Schwartzman. Like Rushmore's right there for me, right? But I don't think I've ever seen Schwartzman go this mature. I don't think I've ever seen him play a dad, but he is really good at it. And it helps that he looks like Stanley Kubrick, for sure.
Yes, it was very, I don't want to say emotional, but something happened inside of my chest when I saw all of his kids hugging him. And my thought was, my goodness, Wes has been doing this so long that Schwartzman could play a teenager to now where he's playing the dad of a teenager. And it was cool seeing that journey with the two of them, come around in this. And I was glad of all of the actors and bigger names that Wes has gathered unto himself over his career. I was glad that this was a Schwartzman vehicle somewhat, and he's somewhat leading the show. And I think that he deserves it. That scene between him and Norton in the real world, where he's changing from one character to another character, delivering his lines, swapping in and out of, how was that? I don't think I can do that. Great. I think that was my favorite scene from him in the film. And it's just cool to see, this year he was the voice of the bad guy in Across the Spider-Verse. And it's typical Jason Schwartzman stuff, that we've come to expect from him. And then he turns around and he does this, and he has these two movies out in the same summer, and I think that's great. I think it's great. I'm really, I'm happy for him that
Yeah.
he gets this chance here.
Similar to Wes, he does not take himself too seriously. He is not an actor who has a lot of pretension, right? Like he's okay to make himself look like a goof if he needs to, if the
Yeah,
scene calls for it. He has the teenage son, who's the brainiac of the film. And what's
yeah,
interesting is they're both kind of in between adulthood and teenagerhood, right? You've got
right.
like the kid who's still kind of a kid, but he's really smart, and you can really see that intellect on display in every conversation. And then Schwartzman, he's an adult, but he's got like teenage like avoidance issues, and he's got that romance with Scarlett Johansson, which honestly I heard some people compare the central romance with the teenagers to Moonrise Kingdom. I think that Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman more closely mimic most of the romances seen in previous Wes Anderson films, that kind of like coy, will they, won't they kind of thing.
Sure.
And I, that relationship is so important to me in the reading of the film because they're constantly dissecting their dissecting their professions and interrogating the integrity of those professions and what they bring to it, what they understand about it, what they still are trying to learn about it. You can relate those topics to anybody's professions, right? If you're a mechanic, right, you will start to relate to the world through like lug nuts, right? And the
Oh, of
same can be
course.
true with any profession, and it's only based on the setting and the story that it has to be around what it is. Um, Definitely the most. This is a celebration of actors, very much so. Like
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
within like the nested narrative of the black and white world, the actors are at the forefront. And you know, you mentioned before about these actors who come in and they work for scale. You know, they don't look for their best. They just want to work with Wes, whether or not they've worked with him before or not. They just want that opportunity. And this movie, Asteroid City, felt like such like a thank you to his collaborators. He's 54 years old, right? I never would have guessed that. When like obviously his movies, his timeline, sure that makes sense, but when you see a movie made by Wes Anderson, it feels really young and like bold,
yeah,
vivacious even,
yeah,
right? And
yes.
it seems with age, he's only getting wiser, he's only getting more curious, and he's only opening up his heart more. And honestly, it's a beautiful thing. It's like one of the reasons why like Asteroid City is such a thing for me, because I'm like I see a lot of empathy there. I see a guy who's really kind,
Yeah,
and I respect that.
yeah. I mean, you have this room full of actors. Willem Dafoe is giving his little his teaching on acting. And again, I can see this scene in someone else's hands being a complete mockery of the acting process. He's highlighting funny little things, like when they're told to fall asleep, they all kind of in a comical way. They collapse. But he's highlighting them, and he's highlighting them as a group. As at one point, um, they show the actors who are in this group, and he says, it's a what does he say? It's like a who's who of people who would go on to be famous,
Mhm.
and it's true of his own films. If you go back to Bottle Rocket, you're like, wow, holy cow, and then you go to Rushmore, it's like, wow, holy cow, and it was nice. Like I said, it's like he's butting up to the idea of making a movie about a large cast of people, but it's a play, so it's still at arm's length. I don't think you can accuse him of navel gazing, but like you said, he's doing a good job of honoring the profession of acting, what goes into it, and the miracle that happens, which is when we're in the real world, it's black and white. We see behind the scenes, we see actors, you know, uh, preparing. Adrian Brody going multiple times, pretending that he's using a steam bag is amazing to me. So he's showing all of those things. He's showing it somewhat for the ridiculousness that it is. But then once the play is going, he shows it to us in vibrant color. And I don't know how you feel about live theater, live stage. When you're there, you can turn your head 3 inches to the right and you can see an exit sign over a doorway. You can turn your head 3 inches to the left and you can see someone on their phone or but when you're there looking at the stage, you are transported. And for him to show that in this movie, that when the actors are doing their thing and when the play is going on, it is a different world. It's a full world. It's a vibrant world. You're no longer just watching actors. You're watching the story. You're watching characters unfold in front of you. And yeah, I think it's great. I agree. Like he's just as vivacious and full of life as he's ever been. And I'm glad that he continues. I was so glad to see that he says he refuses to watch the mimicry and mockery of his stuff on TikTok. He's not interested. Leave him alone. Let him do his thing. It's no harm to us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's earned it, you know. He's made a very vast career. Mm-hmm.
I think again, like there's so much media out there. I'm watching through the television show The OC, which premiered in 2003 for the first time. We're going to be doing a short little mini series on it because this year it's the 20th anniversary. It's my co-host's favorite thing of all time. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could literally spend the rest of my life watching things that already exist that I have no idea of. And I would probably love those things. So when something comes out that we don't enjoy, we do not need to gather our pitchforks and do something about it. Just ignore it. If enough people ignore it, it will go away. You've won. It's like when people retweet all these things like, can you believe what this person said? I'm like, no, because I wouldn't have seen it if you didn't show it to me.
I'm guilty of that.
Can you believe how much traction this is getting? No, because you're the one let it die. Like just turn your back on it and go your own way. You can devote your whole life to television from the 1960s and bury your head, and none of that stuff needs to affect you. You can live in these different worlds. And I just wish more people would take that stance with Wes. Leave Wes alone. Let him do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, let me just
I'm sure there's a lot of things, but
but let me just think back on what you just said there. When it comes to that art, because that goes back to what we said about the artifice and what we know about it being so in our face, right? And when it comes to a lot of like media illiterate criticism, oftentimes it talks about being like pulled out of a film too much, you know, or being too aware of the seams. And you talked before about how theater is a purposefully like false situation when you're consuming it, right? You're aware of the artifice, and it's not so much an issue of the medium, because it's not. It's a matter that the audience can fill in the blanks that exist outside of the seams, right? When it comes to this movie, Wes is making sure that those seams are present, but the quality of his filmmaking has it so you do get swept up, right? His haters will always say that his things are cold or detached. Yes, the same can be true about this film, right? But it also takes you on such a thorough journey. It's an experience like that, right? And many people have that experience where they forget that it's happening in the black and white world and it goes back to color. They're just in the color world, right? The fact that you can have that happen, the fact that a filmmaker can make you feel that despite you know that the artifice is there, that's the sign of a great director. An artist owes the audience nothing, right? It's actually really nice that Wes Anderson makes a really fun movie. You know, he could be making like really dour, depressing things about how people can't change and all those things. But I think that his body of work just kind of speak to his general interests. He seems like a nice guy who likes his particular patterns, and he keeps his friends close. And it's nice to see his friends back. I guess final thoughts on it, you know. Yeah, there's just so much. Just so much. I think I'm just going to leave it there. I don't think I have anything else to say. It's because like I would just go down tangents, you know? I would be
Sure.
like, it would be like, I would be talking about like Elia Kazan and Marlon Brando and how they're like reflected with Schwartzman and Norton. And when you consider that in context with like a Rod Serling narration, that's just bananas. And,
Yep.
and that don't wake up. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep scene with the alien walking towards the camera. That was like one of the
Yes.
most terrifying things. Like I had chills, body chills, and like the audience, you could hear a
Yes.
pin drop. They loved it.
Is this the most surreal that Wes has gotten in that sequence?
Yeah. And like oddly
You know what
enough,
I mean?
it
Like
was,
it felt like the wheels were coming off, and it was like, Wes, what are you doing here? Like, you don't do this type of thing, and here it was. And the alien. I just want to say really quickly, we're
yeah.
introduced the alien as stop motion, and so it looks. I don't want to say it looks janky, but it looks like stop motion put over real, footage.
Hmm.
But then when we see the alien suit in full walking towards us, it looks identical to the stop motion version. And it is so, I don't want to say unsettling. It's really cool, but it's very bizarre.
Mm.
And it's like, oh my gosh. Like you said, it's a little scary. I wasn't like clutching my pearls or anything, but I was like, oh wow. I did not think if we saw the alien in real life, I thought it would be, different. It's exactly what you see earlier in the movie. It's unsettling and strange.
And like the whole movie was so kind before then and after the fact, right? And all of a sudden we get this really desperate
Yeah.
plea. The filmmaker looking directly into the audience and pleading to them. I referenced Spike Lee with Fishburne in School Days, and it does exactly that
Yeah.
too, right? And when I was watching, it was scary, and to me, it felt like it was the most aware of Anderson's own mortality that I've seen in any of his films, right? Like that was the first time I felt like I saw him like afraid of failure or death. And he's had movies where people die, right? It felt like he was
Right.
telling the audience, he's like, you don't have much time. You have to create your stories. You have to go out there and share the things that you love with the world.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. I guess that's
Well, I think we could talk for another 3 hours about this movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad
I
to see
could.
Wes back.
Mhm.
I'm glad to see him continue on, with comedy. I saw a lot, like you're bringing up, I saw a lot of history here. I saw a lot of Tati. I saw a lot of Demi. I think, the French influence on Wes is super apparent. What's the film? La Chinoise? I don't know how to pronounce it in French.
Oh, Godard. Okay. I don't think I've seen that one. No?
Or Pomegranates, obviously.
Yeah.
You see these movies that clearly were a big influence on him. And it's cool to see, him as that bridge to whatever the next generation of filmmakers will be, who will be inspired by his sensibilities. Yeah. So anyway, hey, thanks for joining me for this. This was fun.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
I still am going to call you Rolo Tony.
It's a good
Even though I know
name.
your real name now. Yeah. So where can the people find you?
You can find me at poor old Rolo Tony on twitter.com, or you can keep your eyes peeled for that same username on YouTube. I'll be uploading a very long, probably too long, explanation on Southland Tales very soon, so keep your eyes open for that.
Very exciting. I love Southland Tales. One of the strangest big swings.
Mm-hmm.
We get Donnie Darko, and then we get. It's like, okay, that's quite the 1-2 punch combo. So I'll be looking forward to that. Hey, anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Be sure to check us out at moviefriendspodcast.com. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Have a good one.